AITA, for telling my husband if I knew that before I wouldn't marry you. Me and husband, we've been together for 4 years now. His family is great, but after a year dating we moved in together, and I started noticing that his dad was always calling him 4 or 5 times a day, which I didn't mind, but it was odd my husband was getting frustrated all time his dad called. Husband explained that he always felt bad saying no to them or not answering his calls. BDT2, they have an older son that never answer the phone when called because of the same reason. I told him that there is ways to say no or to tell him not call when he was busy without being rude, so he did, and everything was fine for a period. I started noticing that on Mother's Day he would only take meal to eat with his dad without me being included, which I'd find odd cause I was a mom too, and where I come from PR we celebrate all the mothers in general, but I didn't think too much of it. I really thought it was more cultural thing for him. So a year ago I got pregnant, and after the baby was born his parents started to showing up often, which I didn't mind cause I thought they had baby fever. I was wrong. The Phil just wanted to come by since they don't go anywhere, and his family don't invite them much to places cause the sir talks a lot. Since the baby arrival, husband had to change schedule to help me more since I work from home while I take care of the baby and the household stuff. Now when my husband have his days off, Phil want him to work on his cars or to do other personal stuff with husband, which for some reason he doesn't understand that his son is married and have other priority now, which wife Mill is always apologizing to me because of it. But husband doesn't say no either, so Phil doesn't care much. A few weeks ago their car broke down and he went to rescue them. While I was working around 11 a.m., mind you, it was one of his days off. It was almost 9 p.m. and when I texted him and asked him if he was working on their car, he said no, that they were waiting for the tow truck. Which I asked why he was still there. He replied back saying, "Cause I'm making sure my mom is safe." Which I get, but she was not alone. Phil was there, and there were no real reason for him to be there and not be with his baby and wife. Yesterday we were laying down in bed, and when I was watching a video that he was listening to, and it was saying that wife should comes first, and he said no, it's the mother who comes first. Which I looked at him and told him, well, if that is your mindset, you shouldn't have married in the first place, and you should have stayed with your mom, as I attempted to explain to him why once you are married your new family should always come first, which he replies saying, that's the women perspective, and not everyone think like that. Which I reply back, if I knew that was your perspective I wouldn't married you. He got upset and he stopped talking to me. AITA? First comment, the calls more than 15 men or more each time we talk about it, and his dad stopped doing it. I mentioned the Mother's Day thing because of what he said, that mothers come first. So now it make more senses to me of why he celebrate only with her and not all together. Like I said, I thought it was a cultural difference, but we never talked about it cause it was not a big of deal for me since my previous child is not his 15 years old boy, and I celebrate with my aunt every year. On his days off we agreed that he will be helping me with the baby cause I work from home. Parent know when he is off, they also know that I'm working and still ask him for favor or show up at the house. That day parents called him because they were stranded at 11 a.m., which I didn't mind. He went to help his parents since he is a mechanic, but there was nothing he could do to fix it. Why I took so much time for the tow truck to arrive I can, but I sent him a message around 9 p.m. and they were still waiting. They dropped the car here around 10 p.m. The car had problems and they were told by my husband to use the car until he can check the car, but Phil didn't listen and this happened. Next day husband was off again, mind you, day that he was supposed to be helping me and did not said anything about it. His fixed the car, told them go home, don't use it until he can check it entirely, and they didn't listen, went to Walmart, cars broke down again. So he is called again. My husband is not their only child, his brother don't answer their phone call exactly because of the way they are. Second comment, I remember one time after my son was born, riding with my mom to go see my wife and kid in the hospital. I told her during that ride that my life was part of my family growing up, and we were the group, my mom, sis, and I. But now that I'm married and have a kid, my priority was my family, and that her and my sis and dad weren't one in my life like that anymore. She got very offended and was sour AF about it. She later stole my inheritance from me and my kid from her parents, like committed crimes doing it, and we were estranged for 13 years before she finally passed from cancer unbeknownst to me. I'd tell that bitch the exact same thing today and regret it not at all. I was a husband and father first, son second. That's how it should be. If your hubby insists on being mommy's boy, she can take him in and feed him and change his diaper for him. Go find a partner who's their own adult, complete with proper priorities and a FN spine. Third comment, NTA. Your husband is wrong. It doesn't mean he's a bad person or even that he doesn't have the potential to be a good husband. However, he needs to start putting his wife and his family first or he'll be a bad husband. Wanting to be there for your parents isn't wrong at all, but the inability to set boundaries and say no to them is a big issue. I had to go to therapy to learn how to say no to my mom without crippling guilt. He needs therapy. People are saying why all need couples therapy, and that might be true, but honestly to me, it sounds like he is the issue. He needs to figure out how to differentiate between himself and his parents. Have him talk to his brother about this as a first step. Ask him to seek therapy. Show him this post and the responses. If he won't do individual therapy, couples therapy could be a good option. I think individual could be better. That way he won't be able to say that you and the therapist are ganging up on him or something. Fourth comment, my husband says it all the time. It's us and the kids, our life to make and grow together. My Bill says the same thing. His wife and kids are his family, so I'm really glad we are on the same page. I also believe the same. If my parents need anything from me, they know they have to ask in advance. I'll drop in from time to time. And on holidays, the entire family gets together. Keep in mind, everyone has a different idea of what a relationship is. And these were important questions to ask and boundaries to set before moving in or having a kid together. It's okay, it happens. But you guys need to have a conversation. Ask him what a relationship looks like for him. Ask him what marriage means to him. Ask him if he wants this relationship marriage with you. Ask him if he's running away from his responsibilities by running to his parents at a drop of a hat. Ask him, is there deeper issues why he does that, such as trauma? And ask him if he's willing to compromise with you and your wants. Make it clear that if he can't do these things, he should be honest about it, so you guys can make a clear decision on where you guys stand and if you should be looking at splitting up. You don't want to avoid this conversation, or you'll be in this loop your entire marriage. Marriage is hard. But once you get the communication down, you'll start to see shifts. Maybe not overnight in all things. He should ask you also if it's okay with you, or if you need him before making choices to leave. EDK. And that Mother's Day thing, like holidays. Tell him what you expect. Fifth comment. Please share my response with your husband. It isn't all women. My husband had this talk with me a few years back. I was the one putting my birth family first. It is a really hard thing to break, and I feel for your husband. First, there is the guilt and the resentment toward your spouse for asking for what you see as wrong. Next comes the anger at everyone for pulling at you. Finally comes the tiny realization that your parents may be asking too much. This is the hardest part. Because with that comes the realization that you've always been the golden child, and you don't actually know what your life would have been like if you hadn't constantly be worrying more about their wants and feelings than your own. Your choices all through life were heavily influenced by your parents, how it would affect them. There's this idea, it's not worth arguing over, it will just make them unhappy, and I don't mind not doing it my way that much, but tell him, it is his life, and he is worth it, and if you stay kind about this process, he'll be yours again. If you badmouth his family, he'll be annoyed at both of you and feel very alone. At any rate, NTA, good luck. Sixth comment, NTA. My hubby and I struggled with this as he is extremely close to his family. When I had kids, it became a huge issue as all sorts of family resentments end up boiling up during such a tough time. We got through it, but at some point there ends up being a compromise where he realized his responsibilities to his own family started more when he started to like interacting with the twins, and they called for their dad. Me being specific in what I still needed him to notice and take more ownership of, and not just help. By waiting for me to ask him to do something, and we were also married together for a long time before we had kids, so we did already encounter some of the issues before of his own parents and siblings always being his top priority, which frustrated me to no end. Especially when some don't drive or don't like to drive on highways, etc. So he would drive them places. LOL. I feel your frustration. Couples counseling and both learning to express feelings in a more neutral way, and having my own counselor to help manage my own frustrations and issues has helped get us to a compromise where I don't mind as much and accept the frequent interactions, several calls a day, as I started to appreciate that they are so close but also set boundaries, where important things for our family are not compromised as a result. What you said is understandable, and you're not an asshole, you're just human. But probably he didn't receive it well. Best to either talk through it if you can or get couples counseling to have someone help mediate.